L'chaim, l'chaim, the neshama of Aryeh Leib and Zev Wolf should have an aliyah, label culture. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Amen.
It's a bad custom, by the way, to first say a bracha and eat or drink a little bit, and then say l'chaim. First you thank Hashem, and then you wish well to people. Others have a custom that they say l'chaim, and then they say the bracha, because they want the bracha to, so to speak, accrue to that neshama. But our minhag is to first say the bracha, and then say l'chaim.
Say the bracha, drink, and then say l'chaim.
Exactly. This is, by the way, also part of the repast. Chocolate mousse. Okay, so we were learning about Ikar and Tafel. And I'm going to go through some of the points that we didn't cover yesterday. And then we're going to continue. So I sent a handout. So, you know what, let's skip 1 through 7, because those are really to do with a mezainis, which we haven't really come to. That's in the coming halachas. But let's just talk about stuffed cabbage. Stuffed cabbage, according to Levushi Mordechai, is shahakol only, because the main purpose is the meat. That's the main dish. And the cabbage is just to hold it together, to give it a taste. And it's nice, but between the two, the cabbage, the meat is the main thing. Somebody asked yesterday about rice mixed with chicken. I don't remember who asked that. Somebody asked that. I think so. Oros con pollo, as they say, around these parts. What is it called? Seafood? So that's not for this class. Anyway, so I saw in the Dirshu that he says in the name of Rabbi Yashiv that usually there's more rice, and the main thing in that dish is the rice. It's like a filling food, and the chicken is in there to kind of give it flavor, and therefore the main bracha is on the rice. Now, of course, if you say shakal on the rice, Chabad style, you're okay for sure. If you say mezonos on something else and hadam on something else, Chabad style, and you cover the rice that way, well, then you're covering the chicken also, because the chicken. So what he's saying is that the rice, that the meat is tafel to the rice. What's the bracha on rice? According to the Alter Rebbe, it's a doubt. Okay, according to the Mishnah Berurah, it's mezonos. So if you say mezonos, you're good. According to the Alter Rebbe, it's a doubt, mezonos or hadam. So you have a few options. You could say shahakol to cover it, because shahakol covers everything. And then you for sure cover the chicken, because shahakol is good for chicken. But let's say you make mezonos on one thing and hadam on something else, not on the rice. You take a piece of a cookie, you say mezonos. Take a piece of a string, when you say hadam. And now you've covered the rice. Well, just like you've covered the rice, you've also covered the meat, because the meat is secondary to the rice. So you had the rice in mind when you said mezonos or hadama. Either way, the rice is covered. Automatically, the chicken, which is part of the rice, is covered.
If you were to do a blessing on the chicken,
That's according to the Alter Rebbe that it would be shahakol.
What would be shahakol?
How did the chicken get covered by mezonos and hadam if the rice is shahakol?
No, rice is a doubt if it's mezonos or hadama. That we learned in the first chapter. Got to catch up. You got to catch up on those videos, my friend. Rice is a doubt if it's mezonos or hadama. So the Mishnah Berurah paskins that it's mezonos, even though some machlokes is shining, paskins the main halacha is that it's mezonos. And anyway, he quotes some poskim that say mezonos covers everything, so that's his psak. But the Alter Rebbe says because of the doubt of mezonos or hadama, you say shahakol. The shahakol covers everything. Mezonos doesn't cover everything. Hadama doesn't cover everything. Shahakol does. So that's his ruling. So Lamaisa, if you say shahakal on the rice, you could say shahakal, but it's better to say separate brachas, which would be mazanis on one thing, hadam on something else, and then the rice is covered. So my point is, you could either cover the rice by saying shahakal on the rice, and then obviously the chicken is covered. But even if you cover the rice by saying two separate brachas on two other foods, since the rice is covered and the chicken is secondary to the rice, the chicken becomes covered as well.
But
All right?
in continuation to Chaim's question, how does that make sense? It's not shahakol, right? You're also not rice. One of the brachas is mezainis or is hadama. But for meat, one of the brachas is not mezainis or shahakol or a hadama.
So when you have a cracker and you dip it in the hummus, what bracha do you say?
Mezainis.
The bracha on hummus is absolutely not mezainis. No opinion says the bracha on hummus is mezainis. So what happened to the bracha on the hummus?
No, but it makes sense if you're saying, like, let's say a mezainis where the food is mixed together, like meatballs and lakshan or whatever. But in here, it's a totally separate item. It's a cookie.
No, I'm talking about where it's mixed in. Oros con pollo. You're from South Florida. I'm talking about where it's mixed in. I'm not talking about you're eating rice on one side of the plate and chicken on the other side of the plate. I'm talking about a dish of cut up pieces of chicken cooked together with the rice.
Right, but you're using separate items to be yaitzi that rice that's in the oros con pollo.
So what? Who cares? When you said the bracha on the hadama and you had in mind the rice, it's like you said the bracha on the rice. When you said the bracha on the zionus and you had the bracha on the rice, it's like you said it on the rice. Now we don't know which one it is, but either one, from one or the other, you said the bracha on the rice. And this is part of the rice, so it's covered. Just like about the kiddush, you said mezainis on a piece of cake. And then you had a cracker dipped in the hummus. So what's the difference?
Because the difference is because by the crackers, the cracker is yaitzi by the mezainis you said on the cake. But here,
exactly. The rice is yaitzi with the mezainis you said on the cookie, or with the hadam you said on the grapefruit, on green bean. We just don't know which one, but one or the other, it's yaitzi with it.
You're saying the chicken is like the hummus.
Chicken is like the hummus. That's correct.
I don't get that.
The chicken is secondary to the rice, just like the hummus is secondary to the cracker.
Right, but I understand if the bracha is being made on the actual mixture, like the oros con pollo, you decided to make a mezainis or a shahakol or hadama on the rice. So therefore, since the meat is part of that mixture, it's yaitzi by that bracha. But when you're taking two separate items from your pantry and you're saying a bracha dafka on the rice, why should the chicken or the meat be part of that mixture if the bracha is not at all?
Explain to me, if you're at a kiddush and you bake a bracha on a piece of cake and then you eat a cracker dipped in hummus, how is the hummus covered by the mezainis that you made on the cake? Explain to me.
I don't know.
Okay, now you do.
Exactly. The chicken is tafel to the rice.
It's still secondary to the cracker. Now, the truth is, we're going to say later that when you say a bracha on the ikar, you have to know that you're going to eat the tafel. If you decide later, it's not going to work. So could be that if the hummus was not out and they brought it out later or whatever. I don't know. But if it's all on the table there, so it's presumed that you're going to eat whatever's there. So when you said one mezainis on one thing, it includes mezainis and everything else, and this is tafel to that mezainis, so it's covered by it. Same thing. Yeah. If it's not there.
Crackers, and then they bring me a dip.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is that it could be if you're in a meal, not it could be. I think the halacha would be if you're in a meal and there's a balabayas, so it's like you had in mind everything he would bring. But if you decide on your own, you're nashing in your kitchen and you don't plan to have any dips, whatever. And then you decide, I'm going to have a dip. I'm going to start dipping. Okay, that's not that tafel was not included in the original bracha. I don't think so. No. What do you think? So?
What if you take some of the hummus and put it on a plate after you've been dipping?
Then you say Seder Birchos. Seder Birchos, absolutely, yeah. Okay, my friends.
And the bracha on hummus is shahakol?
Shahakol, yeah. I mean, there's different opinions about it, but
So why
in
not
practice, it's
why not
shahakol.
take some at the beginning and then say shahakol on that? Then you don't have to worry.
So just to review, you said that you would say the mezonos on the cake, and then when you dip the cracker in the hummus, then you would say the shehakol when you eat that cracker.
No, that's incorrect. You say mazeres on the cake, and you cover the cake and the cracker and the hummus all together.
But if the hummus wasn't out and
Oh, if it wasn't out and you didn't have it in mind, then correct. That's correct. Then you would make separate mazeres on the hummus. In terms of your question,
no, you make a separate mazonos on the cracker with the hummus.
no, a separate shehakol on the hummus.
But could you make a shehakol? Sorry, go ahead.
No, so I see. So when you dip that cracker, and it would be right before you eat that cracker with the hummus, then you say the shehakol.
Say shehakol on the hummus separately, correct. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
What were you going to say, David? You started to say something?
No, I was saying that you wouldn't dip the cracker. You wouldn't dip the cracker into hummus and make a shehakol on the whole cracker with hummus.
You would make it on the hummus.
Like you'd have to take like a spoon of hummus and eat it by itself, right?
I mean, the bracha is on the hummus, so I presume you eat it separately, but you can use the cracker to dip. It's no problem. What are we going to say, David?
Wait, so the ikar is the hummus?
No, the ikar is the cracker.
The cracker, yeah.
No, that's having when you already made a bracha on a piece of cake, having
on the
cracker
okay,
in
that's
mind.
what I missed. Okay.
I have one other question about if let's say you had a pie, like a pumpkin pie, but the crust was made out of like rice, like sometimes they make rice like really crusted rice. So
Yeah, cornmeal. Yeah, go ahead.
So what would that be?
Those that say mazonos on rice say mazonos on rice flour products as well. So that would be mazonos. Those that, but if it's corn flour, then it would be shehakol. And those that say shehakol on rice say shehakol on items made with rice flour.
Shehakol on rice.
Shehakol on rice, with Alter Rebbe, yes.
Oh, okay. Or adama. What about adama?
It's a suffix adama or shehakol or mazonos. But when you make rice flour out of it, then it becomes a suffix shehakol or mazonos. Because if it's adama, it becomes shehakol. If it's mazonos, it stays mazonos.
Okay, so that would be a machlokas between the Alter Rebbe and the Mishnah Berurah.
And that's my question. On the second one, looks like the ikar is a chicken.
In the first one, honestly, it looks like the ikar is the rice. In the second one, it looks like it's two separate brachas. You're cooking them together because you want the flavor of the chicken and the rice, but it really is two separate foods. You know what I'm saying? It's like mamish, a separate food. Yeah, I'm not, honestly, even though I live in South Florida, I don't really know what Oros Kapoyo is. I just know how to say it. So if it's like mamish big pieces like that, I don't think it's secondary. I don't think either one is secondary to either one. Why?
I didn't see the picture of the dish.
Oh, you don't see it?
Chicken and rice.
First one is will be mazonos, the second one is two brachos.
Yeah, I think the second one is two brachas.
Well, the second one looks like it was placed on top. That's cooked in the dish.
No, it's cooked in the dish. It's cooked in the dish.
I mean, it wouldn't be that considerate if it was cooked like that. But why wouldn't that be?
I don't think it becomes one because they're mamish separate pieces. You know what I'm saying? If you the first one they're separate, but they're mixed together. You eat it together. Here it's a separate.
When you're eating the chicken, you're only eating the chicken.
Exactly, and even when you cook it, you don't intend to mamish eat it together. You're cooking it together so they could share flavors. But I don't think it's mamish one dish. I don't know. That's my opinion. I don't have a proof for it, but that's my opinion. I did come across something similar today, and when I remember what it is, I'll share it with you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you're eating the first kind, right? So you're making a bracha on the rice, whether it's a mazonos or shehakol or however you're going to do it.
Yeah.
If you then like take one of those peppers, like you just fork one of those peppers by itself while you're eating this whole mishmash of stuff of this rice, it's still covered.
Still covered, just like the carrots in the chicken soup. Still covered, all covered by shehakol. Now, you were asking about saying the bracha separately. So when it comes to the rice, you could say a hadama. You could take the You could take the hadama out first and say it separately in the vegetables and the rice. When it comes to the hummus, you can't because you're changing the order. Changing the order. Not allowed to change the order for no reason. There are some cases, but this is not a warranted case. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, since some say rice is mazonos, can you be yotzi kiddush on eating rice instead of like a?
Can you be yotzi kiddush on eating rice? The answer is no. It has to be 5 types of grain.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
Not even fruits.
Not with fruits you can make halates except for dates. Yeah, the Gemara says that dates are filling. But
also wine.
Wine is brought in the poskim. Dates are only brought in the Pri Megadim, not only. Dates are in the Pri Megadim.
I don't think everybody agrees that's why I haven't seen it, but I've never seen them. So you'd be allowed to eat dates?
According to the Pri Megadim, yeah. I haven't seen anybody that argues on him. So my assumption is that's the halacha. Somebody argues. I don't know. As far as I know, that's the halacha.
Wow, such a big...
Pomegranate would be included also.
Sorry?
Pomegranate.
Pomegranate, no.
Not the 7.
It's the 7, but it's a special thing that dates are satisfying. I don't know what's so special about dates. I don't know. Okay, my friends, fruit salad, according to the Alter Rebbe, is separate brachas if you have hadam ha'ra'etz in them. Because in order for foods that are not cooked together to become one bracha, the Alter Rebbe says they have to be crushed and mixed. It's not enough to just mix, it has to be crushed and mixed. So you'd have to make a massive goo out of it, and your wife would not be very happy. So,
for cereal, is that the same thing? Yeah.
I forgot to clarify. Let me clarify. First of all, Rafal, you haven't said l'chaim yet. What are you saying l'chaim on? Absolutely. I also have this as a sweet liqueur.
Do you have virtual whiskey?
All counts. What's the question? Yeah, for sure. Take a mazonos too while you're at it. We have 2 mazonos here. We have another shackle here also. Some chocolate mousse.
Wow.
Challah from what we discussed yesterday.
I wish I paid attention yesterday so we can know what bracha they were. Oh, it's machlekes.
No. This is mazonos.
Oh, because it's definitely. Oh, because it's pineapple juice.
Yes, all those products.
But don't we say that if the bread was the bread and then you put juice on top of the bread?
When it's cooked again, it gets a new getter of mazonos.
So you can bake bread again with new juice and 50. How much juice you have to put?
You have to put machlokes. You have to put more than present water or more than the water before also. But David Leib only has other juices, no others. So he says it's for sure mazonos. So fruit salad. If you don't crush the fruit salad, according to Alter Rebbe, you have to make separate brachas. You take a piece of hadama, ha'etz first, and you say a bracha, and you take a piece of hadama, and you say a bracha. Make sure, by the way, that you're not saying hadama on a suffix ha'etz. Because a banana, for example, could be ha'etz. A strawberry could be ha'etz. A pineapple could be ha'etz. What you want to take is a cantaloupe or a watermelon. Those are for sure hadama. Arye Leib Ben Zev Wolf.
So if it's crushed, then how do you figure out what bracha to make?
Sorry.
Question. If it's crushed, how do you know what bracha to make?
If it's crushed, then you ask the chef, what is the majority? And you go by the majority. Now, the Mishnah Berurah says that it does not have to be crushed, as long as it's mixed together. The Aruch HaShulchan adds it has to be mixed in such small pieces that every spoon you take, you have from each of the mixture. Now, it doesn't have to literally be every spoon, but pretty much every spoon. If it happens that you have a spoon with only one, you're still covered. However, the first spoon, Shlomo Zalman says, should be with the majority of the actual majority, whatever the majority is. Another chiddush, according to Shlomo Zalman, is, let's say you don't have a majority of any one fruit. You have many eight fruits, you have many Hadama fruits. It so happens all the eight fruits outnumber the volume of all the Hadama fruits, but there's no one fruit that's the majority of anything. Still, if Shlomo Zalman says that's still considered the Ikar. The Peiros ha'etz are considered the Ikar in that case, even though there's no one fruit that's the Ikar. Peiros ha'etz are considered the Ikar. So you say that bracha.
So what's with cereal?
Regular fresh fruit salad.
Oh, cereal. You asked about cereal, yes.
Then you have the canned fruit salad, which is cooked.
Benji, what's your exact question with cereal? Like having fruit in it?
I'll get to it in a minute. Fruit salad is not cooked together. These pieces are probably small enough to have one piece in each spoon. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to check raspberries for bugs, but that's a side point. But yeah, that would be a majority what? Majority Hadama, no? I see papaya, that's Hadama. Pineapple is Hadama. What's raspberry? I can't even remember the last time I ate a raspberry. What's raspberry?
Raspberry's Hadama, I think. I think all berries are ha'etz except for raspberry and strawberry.
Okay.
No.
No, they're
Raspberries grow in a bush, I think, which are all year round.
No,
Yeah.
I think he's right. I think raspberries are Hadama.
Hadama.
We're going to get to it. Alter Rebbe explains why. But anyway, yeah, so it's mostly Hadama there. The kiwis
What
are
about-
outnumbered.
What about if you have a like a smoothie where it's even more than crushed? I mean, because they can mix that with either
Yeah, liquid,
like,
liquid fruits are shahakal. In the second case, where it's cooked together, then even the Alter Rebbe says you go by the majority. Oh, by the way, in the first case, the Alter Rebbe says you make separate brachas, by the way. You make separate brachas according to the Alter Rebbe. So you would take a ha'etz, kiwi, and you would take is there anything that's for sure Hadama there? I don't even know.
Why not the papaya?
Pineapple.
Papaya is not so clear that it's Hadama. Is it for sure?
Pick it up from
Pineapple? Yeah, but you don't have to plant it every year.
Yeah, Rabbi, I just was looking at it. Actually, I have an old copy of Rabbi Budner's book I got from him in Lakewood a long time ago,
Yeah,
and he says raspberries are ha'etz.
that's not the Alter Rebbe's opinion. With all due respect to Rabbi Bodner, he's entitled to
Okay.
plant them like his poiskim, but the Alter Rebbe holds that they're Hadama.
Okay.
We're going to get there. It's a Shem. I'm talking about a smoothie that's actually liquid. Liquid is shakal. I mean, it depends on the smoothie. Yesh smoothie. If it's liquid, it's shakal. If it's pieces, I guess it's still. Sorry? Depends. If you blend it for long enough, it becomes a liquid. If it's still pieces, then it would be ice. Yeah, I don't know at what point exactly, but generally liquid is shakal.
That's in the table. These are nice pictures of the food you're making. What's in the caters?
Are you Leben Zev Wolf?
Oh,
Label Goldshire. What are you drinking?
Mrs.
Liqueur?
Good makes this kind.
Shivas? Absolute.
What is this? This one.
Liqueur.
The almond.
I like this sweet.
It's the almond.
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Good makes this kind.
Mrs.
That one
Good?
with olives. Yeah,
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've eaten there. You say so.
I've had it. We got the
That's
rest.
good. Look.
Shkoyach.
We begged her for the rest.
Mazinus?
They're both Mazonas?
Both Mazinus.
This looks like it's sweeter.
And this is shakal. Chocolate mousse.
That's
To wash it down.
What do you do with this?
You eat it.
Huh? You-
It's chocolate mousse. Okay. Amen. Amen. So liquid and solid, according to the Alter Rebbe, you make a bracha if there is a clear Ikar and Tafel. but you don't go by the majority because they're not considered mixed. When there's a clear Ikar and Tafel, meaning to say your main intention is one, and this one is other one is being eaten in a secondary manner, doesn't have to be mixed, because as we're going to see later, two foods can be eaten completely separately. Yet, if they're eaten in a way of Ikar and Tafel, the Ikar covers the Tafel. So certainly, if you're eating them together at the same time, even though they're not mixed properly, it's still, if one is an Ikar, one is a Tafel, you make a bracha on the Ikar. So for example, cereal, generally, the Ikar is a cereal. You want to eat breakfast. Breakfast is a filling food. So you want to have some grains or some corn or some rice, but it's dry, obviously. You want to add the milk. You like the flavor of the milk too, but in the scheme of things, it's secondary to the cereal. However, Moshe writes that if you are feeding it to your children and you want them to be big and strong and have all those vitamins in the milk, as the doctor says, you have to drink X number of cups of milk every day, so then your kavanah is for both. There's no clear Ikar and Tafel. Kavanah for both. So you say the bracha on both, separate brachas.
What if you're going to drink the milk afterwards, but at the moment you just want it to be cereal?
So that's actually seems to be a machlokes haposkim. When I say poskim, I mean like modern day poskim, because Moshe says that once it's tafel, not for kids, but for adults or even for kids, if you're not specifically doing it for health purposes. So once it's tafel, and even if there's a little bit of leftover milk, it's still covered by the bracha and the ikar. Alter Rebbe says that whenever you're having an ikar and a tafel that are not cooked together, but they are simply mixed together, they become one in that sense, and there's an ikar and a tafel, the tafel is only covered by the ikar when you're eating them together. If there's a tafel left over separately, then you say the bracha separately. So if you're eating a mazonos pizza, for example, that's cooked together. So you set a mazonos on the pizza, let's say. I mean, it's complicated for pizza to be mazonos, all the opinions, whatever. But let's say it's mazonos pizza, and you make a mazonos on the pizza, and there's some cheese left over, you don't have to say mazonos. Because it's cooked together, it's considered, you don't have to say shakal on that piece of cheese afterwards, because it's covered, it's like one entity. But if it's something that you're eating separately, like the cereal and the milk, according to Alter Rebbe, you finish the cereal, you have a little bit of milk left, you would say shakal on that. No, the Alter Rebbe.
So
that's
the same as eating more hummus after you eat it with mazonos.
According to Alter Rebbe, that's correct. No, the difference is there you were talking about taking more. You have.
Oh, here it's left over.
Yeah, here it's left over in the same bowl. You're not actively taking more. If you actively take more, Moshe will also say shakal.
So that's if you.
Now you're having a drink of
So
milk.
if you eat the pizza and there's leftover cheese, and then you take a slice of cheese,
Of course you do it as well, because there that cheese is a separate thing. And if you pour more milk and you have it, that's for sure shakal according to all opinions. Talking about leftovers.
It's not a suffix. Like if there's milk left over with no cereal in it, you say shahakal. But if there's like one piece of cereal in it and you down it with that piece of cereal, is that okay, or do you still have to say shahakal?
I mean, I guess you don't have to say shakal. There's one piece. It's still there. I'm just going to look it up in my notes of Rav Deitch, of what Rav Deitch said, because I want to make sure I'm getting it right in terms of leftovers. Alter Rebbe says if it is made, i.e. cooked as one, even if there's leftover tafel, it's still covered by the bracha on the main thing. Something that is only mixed but not cooked together, it does not apply. That's what I have in my notes from Rav Deitch. So I'm going to go by that for now. I didn't see it inside the Alter Rebbe recently, but that's what I believe to be the case. You know what? The Alter Rebbe is going to discuss it further in Perek Zayin. So hopefully we'll see it more explicitly there, and I'll be a little bit more sure of myself.
Come back to the fruit salad. You have a fruit salad, you eat the fruit, you have leftover liquid. Juice.
That's Tafel. That's secondary. You don't make it like bracha.
If you're gonna drink it already, I'm gonna pour it you know, I'm gonna put it in a cup and drink it tomorrow.
If you don't have it at the same time, it's shahakal.
Then it's just separate.
If it's part of it, then it's secondary. Okay, my friends. That's pretty much it for the notes. And we're going to get back to the beginning of the notes after we do more in the Alter Rebbe because it's relevant there. Okay. So, Eric Gimel, Halacha Beis. So, you see there's some messages on the chat here. Let's see what this is about. Please email to my email. Oh. You all never got the email? I never emailed it then because I didn't realize. Just give me a second, please. What do I want to say? Well, yeah, Michael is coming with one friend, with his father, actually. So, who else is coming? But so you can ask them, please. Tell them there's refreshments today, please. Okay, here we go. Min dagon. Hoyo v'nikra mazoin. A type of grain, because it is called mazoin. Hu chashav ikar loylam. It is always considered the main thing. Shafilu ratav shel dvash avinu macher. Even if most of the dish is honey, of the tafshel, when he said the cooked item, is honey or other species, and a minority of the ingredients is from the 5 species of grain. By the way, when we talk about min dagan, we mean only the 5 species of grain. We do not mean rice. Rice, even those that say mezainis on rice, this special halacha does not apply. In order for rice to be, in order for a mixture of rice and something else to be mezainis, it has to be either that the rice is actually the ikar, or it's a majority if there is no ikar, but not simply because it's mezainis. This is a special halacha that applies only to the 5 grains: wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye. Even if your main intention in this food is the sweet foods, like honey or other types, and the grain is only to give it extra flavor and prepare it meaning to say to give it some body, whatever it is, nevertheless, the grain becomes the main thing. And you say mezonos and alamechim. That's only if you have a substance of the grain in what you're going to eat. Meaning to say, if you would cook the grain and the flavor of the grain would go into what you're going to eat, that doesn't make it mezonos. We're talking about the actual substance of the grain. If it only has the flavor in it, that's not a mezonos. The whole point is, the reason that's important is because it's a satisfying food. If you only have the flavor, not the food, it's not exactly satisfying. Some say that in order to make an alamichya, you have to have a kazayas in a kedei achilas pras, which is basically 1/6 of grain, because a kazayas is a half an egg, and a pras is 6 eggs. Is 3 eggs, excuse me. It's 3 eggs. There's different opinions about it, but to simplify matters, it's approximately a 1/6. It has to be 1/6 of the ingredients. Now, if you have a cake that is made with grain, which does not have 1/6 of the grain, it's a doubt what the after bracha is. if it should be ala mechia because of the fact that the grain is the main thing, or not, because the grain is not enough of a grain to satisfy you. So maybe it's bar nefashos, presuming that the other ingredients are shahakal. So therefore, because of this doubt, you should have another food. I mean, you could have it during the meal. It's one way of taking care of it. Another way of taking care of it is to have another food that is ala mechia, another food that's bar nefashos. And that way you're covered either way. Now he doesn't bring it down over here, but he's going to bring it down later. I think it's in Parak Chas, that even if it has a kazayis in the Kedei Achilas process, is another machlekes. Do you have to eat the actual kazayis of the grain, or once you have that ratio, kazayis of the thing itself is mezainis, right? So take, for example, a piece of cake. Not that I was planning to eat another one, but now that I have it in my hand, there's something else. So you have a piece of cake. Let's say the amount of flour in here is a quarter of the total of the ingredients, let's say. So is a quarter of this piece, I mean, it's a quarter, it's more than a sixth. So there's no question that you could make ala mechia on it. The question is, do you have to eat 4 kazaysim in order to make that ala mechia? Or is it enough to eat 1 kazayis? Because since it has that ratio, the whole thing becomes ala mechia. That's a separate machlekes. We're going to get to that later. So for now, just eat 4 kazaysim and you'll be good. You know what? Let me look it up. That way you can save yourself from all those extra kazaysim. Yeah, 2 opinions. One is you make a bracha on the kazayis. The other opinion is you only make it if you eat the entire pras. The Alter Rebbe paskins that because of the doubt, you would say ala michya. It's a doubt of ala michya and or nefashos. So I presume it would be the same doubt here. Now there's benching or ala michya. He says to make ala michya. Based on the same doubt, I'm not 100% sure. Let's leave that until Perek Ches, and we'll have to figure it out by then. All right. Ahmed Var Mamori, when do we say this? That the small amount of grain is considered the main thing. When the purpose of it is to give a taste. If you're adding it only to flavor it, or to bind it and to thicken it, so it should be a little bit thick. It becomes secondary to the tafshel.
So that's the clear answer for licorice, right?
That's what they pass now about licorice. That the flour is just a binder, and therefore, even though without the flour you wouldn't have anything resembling licorice at all. I mean, that's what holds it together. Otherwise, you just have flavorings. But the fact is that those flavorings are the ikar, and the flour is just to hold it together. So that's what they say to say shahakal now. And obviously, if you're saying shahakal, you're saying bar nefashos. Even though you're eating flour, maybe having a kazayas of flour. But if it's secondary, you don't make that ala michya either. Ahmed Ramamor, when do we say this? If you have no intention whatsoever for the eating of the grain. But if you do intend also to eat it, even though it's not the main thing, your main thing is for the other species. For example, sweet, shouldn't say mazanis, that's what we're discussing the bracha, but sweet baked dainties like flour mixed with honey, which we call like a honey cake. The main thing is the honey. The main thing you're eating it is for the pleasure. And the flour is not the main thing. Still, the bracha is mezainis and alamichya. Why? Because cake tastes very different than honey. The purpose of adding the flour is not just to be able to pick up the honey and eat it. You know what I'm saying? Cake has a different flavor, and you want the flavor of cake. And it's also somewhat satisfying, and you're happy about that. It's not like licorice, which is mamish. It's like a candy. And the flour is holding it together. Cake is a different sort of food. It's a more filling food, and that's part of the intention. Maybe it's not the main intention. Maybe the main intention is a pleasure, but you also are enjoying the flour flavor as well. Even though it's not the main intention, it still is considered the main thing. That's the rule. When you're adding the flour for flavor, it becomes the main thing. Like we said before, you're not going to wash and bench on it, because after all, it's not a meal type of bread. It's a snack type of bread. And the main reason you're baking it is not for the flour, but rather for the sweetness. Which unless you eat, of course, a big amount, then it becomes hamoitzi, no question. Questions, anybody?
Schnitzel.
Schnitzel. Schnitzel, no?
Like, I heard the bracha for schnitzel is for sure is shahakol, but I mean, I personally enjoy the breadcrumbs of the schnitzel. Like, that's why I'll choose schnitzel over, like, pargiyot or something, because I want the breaded part of the schnitzel.
Right. Definitely a schnitzel tastes different than chicken, and people like that taste. So why do people not make mezainis on schnitzel? Just mezainis? That's what Ravadia says?
He used to say, it's shahakol, only shahakol. But that was when he was describing the schnitzel in a way that it was very, very insignificant type of crust or whatever stuff around it.
Batter.
But the Nusar would say that if it actually has a normal amount, then it's there to give taste. So,
right. So the simple halacha would seem that schnitzel should be mezainis. And it's hard to explain why that is not the minhag. The minhag is, that I've seen.
Not like cheesecake. It's kind of like the same thing. People feel like it's so insignificant. Having chicken, the crust of.
I know, but cheesecake people say mezainis.
And
No, people say mezainis on cheesecake.
Everyone that I've ever discussed halacha with is very surprised that it's
cheesecake.
Yeah, usually cheesecake is a big, whopping piece of cheese and a little crust on the bottom.
So what?
Right. Maybe they also have a doubt now. Should they make a lot of mazonos also? But I'm saying usually people think that you make both. Usually when they hear just mazonos, they become very.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the minhag of people who know what they're doing. Is the same. I'm not just talking about. I'm talking about Yereim and Shleinim say bracha shahakol and schnitzel. So to try to understand their opinion, there's an interesting discussion in the Sefer V'Zos Bracha, which I saw today. And he says that it's actually a machlokes Rishonim about this whole mezainis becoming the Ikar. And the way he explains it is that some Rishonim hold that even though mezainis is special and it's considered the Ikar, but that's only true if it is a significant ingredient, not if it's a insignificant ingredient. In other words, in addition to the fact that it's only when it's for taste, if it's for flavor or consistency or binder or whatever, that or color, that's for sure secondary. In addition to that, even when it's there for flavor, it has to be there for significant flavor. Now, it doesn't have to be the main purpose, because for that, you don't have to have min dagan. You could have anything that's the main purpose becomes the main thing. The point is, if there are two significant flavors, and the main reason you're eating it is not for the mazonos, nevertheless, the mazonos becomes the main thing. But if the mazonos is there in an insignificant way, even though you want its flavor, but it's in an insignificant way. It's an insignificant flavor. So he brings, I think, several Rishonim. I think the Rav, and I think it must have been like
That would be dependent on how thick that is.
exactly. So that's what he wants to say. He wants to say, if it's thin, it's shahakol, if it's thick, some say to just say Zionist, and some say it's still a doubt, and you should say two brachas. Now, when I heard this being taught by Rav Deitch, he didn't say that svara. I don't remember what svara he said in this whole sugya, but I remember his maskana. His maskana was, cut it open, say shahakal first, and then mazonos. Listen carefully why. Normally you can't say shahakal before mazonos. Mazonos before shahakal. But he said the problem is that the main halacha, it would seem, is that it should be mazonos. So once you say mazonos, you can't say shahakal. So the point is, if you say mazonos, then shahakal, it could be it's a bracha levatala, so you can't say it. But you're going to be left with a doubt that maybe you're not saying a bracha when you need to. So when you say shahakal first, you're changing the order of the bracha. But you can do that in order to get out of a doubtful situation of not saying a bracha on something. He had a proof for it.
Doesn't the Alter Rebbe say that?
Now what?
Or maybe the Mishnah Berurah that I saw says that? That exact svara.
That's where I've seen. I don't remember who says it. You're allowed to change the order of the bracha in order to save yourself from being in a suffix of not making the right bracha or missing a bracha altogether. So that's what it is here. He said the same thing, by the way, about ice cream wafers. You know what I'm saying? Those
Ice cream sandwiches.
Ice cream sandwiches, like the tafudi sandwiches. So he said the main thing it would seem is that it should be mazonos only. But people consider the ice cream significant. The main thing is the ice cream in people's mind. Okay, so it's a suffix, al kolpanim. But once you say mazonos, you won't be able to say shahakal. So he said the same thing. Take out some shahakal, say shahakal, and then mazonos.
If you're in a suffix, so why is it considered?
Yeah, but question.
Making the shahakal after the mazonos?
Because the ikar is, he says the ikar la'alacha is that mazonos covers it. So therefore, once you say mazonos, it's not a tzricha, it's a levatah.
No, that. Once you say shahakal after the mazonos.
Exactly. Once you say mazonos, you cannot say shahakal at that point. You can't do it.
So for schnitzel, to cover your bases, you cut open the chicken and you eat the chicken and then mazonos on the crust?
That's Rav Deitch's psak. Yes.
Wow, game changer.
Deitch's psak is good for me. Emmanuel, what were you doing?
In the crust, the outside with the corn.
Then you're in luck. You say shahakal. Cornmeal crust on schnitzel is shahakal. According to the Alter Rebbe, rice flour also shahakal.
Question.
One second. Actually, even according to Mishnah Berurah, rice flour is still going to be shahakal because the chicken is the main thing. And by rice flour, we don't say that mazonos becomes the main thing. Yes, question. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, what's the difference between like a pumpkin pie and an ice cream sandwich? You know, I mean, if you're going to say Bremen is on the pumpkin pie, I mean, you still have a pretty thick piece of crust on the ice cream sandwich.
That's a good question. Why do you
Based
think?
off of what you're saying, couldn't we do separate brachas on everything? Like the stuffed cabbage, you could also just take out the insides and make two separate brachas, no?
Yeah, but there's no doubt there. There's no doubt there.
Why would you make a bracha on something?
I mean, pashtus, the main thing is the meat.
Peppers, just
Yeah. Hold it, flavor it. That's the pashtus. I mean, the truth is, I did see somebody who says that you should say two brachas, but the Levushi Mordechai says say shakel. That's no mistaver to me. He brings down here both opinions in the Dirshu Reshid Beis. Kruv Mole Bas. Levushi Mordechai says shakel. Yasha says the same thing. The Bear Moshe says the same both. Okay, but that I don't know. That's a chiddush. What were you going to say? Question? No.
So many opinions on each. How we can choose, okay, this one or this one or that, or you can put the Rebbe that said.
If you're Chabad, you follow the Rebbe. If you're Ashkenaz, you follow Mishnah Berurah. If you're Sephardic, generally, a lot of Sephardim follow the Yalkut Yosef. And if you haven't decided yet, then what can I tell you? But I like teaching all the opinions, so you should be well-rounded. You should know the opinions. But really, la halacha l'maaseh, you should follow your community.
Or when we get in front of the question, for example.
So if you know all the opinions, you say all the opinions. If you just remember the ones that you're keeping, say that one, and I'll tell them that's I taught that as the main one. If it's your thing, I don't know.
Did you discuss egg rolls already?
I did not know.
Is that like the same idea with the schnitzel? Like, would you say, the outside, inside type of thing?
I think egg rolls are mazonos.
No matter what's inside?
I don't think that makes a difference.
No, egg rolls, the purpose of the egg roll was the full of mazonos.
Yeah, egg roll is like a bareka. Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It depends how much. I mean, sometimes the fish is less, but whatever. So just to get back to what Daniel was saying about pumpkin pie. I don't have a clear answer, except that I think people consider pumpkin pie to be a pie. You know what I'm saying? The pie is a very important part of it, even if it's not the ikar, but it's a significant ingredient. You know what I'm saying? By the schnitzel, you could argue, at least a thin layer, it's not so significant. Maybe even a thick layer. After all, it's chicken you want to eat. You don't want to eat. Cake. You want to eat.
I saw that the whole should have gotten regular chicken.
No, you want it, but it's in an insignificant way. You want it as a tafel, even though a tafel that has its own brach, that is a min dog and is usually the ikar, but only a significant tafel. This is his chiddush. This is a brachas chiddush, based on the Rishonim, I think it's the Rosh and the Rambam, is that it has to be an ikar, even though it's not the ikar between the two ingredients. It has to be an ikar ingredient. It has to be an important ingredient, not a subordinate ingredient. I'm saying, but by the pie, I don't know if that's the case. By the pie, a person wants pie. He's having pie.
Any pie is like
Exactly. Exactly. Broken cheesecake is Zionist.
And that would also go for the ice cream sandwich too. The same thing. Don't you think?
The truth is that ice cream sandwiches are not even cooked together. So there it's a little bit different. When things are not cooked together and they're not actually mixed, it's two layers, one on top of the other. In order for one to cover the other, it has to be that one is the ikar and the other one is the tafel. You know what I'm saying?
Ah, that's a good point. Wow.
So
maybe just have a glass of water before you have the ice cream sandwich and say shahakol and then eat the mazonos.
yeah, you could do that. Or you could say mazonos first and then the water. But the point is that if you say just the mazonos, is it clear? I mean, you didn't really want to eat a wafer. You wanted to eat an ice cream sandwich. So I don't think the mazonos is enough. I think you have to say the shahakal separately. But because mazonos is an important food, I don't think it's going to be tough to the shahakal either.
What's an ice cream sandwich different?
I mean, if you only wanted to eat the ice cream, you won't have the cone, or you won't have the.
1 second, Moshe. Emmanuel is asking, how is an ice cream sandwich different than a cheese sandwich? So first of all, if it's a hamotzi sandwich, let's say a mazonos sandwich. So each sandwich has to be considered separately. But usually when you make a sandwich, the ikar is the sandwich and the inside is the flavor. That's usually the main thing. But here, because you want an ice cream sandwich, so you want the ice cream mainly, you know what I'm saying? At least it's enough to create a doubt. Let's put it that way. But it's true, if you would have a sandwich with, you know what I'm saying, like the pastrami sandwiches with a stack of pastrami in the middle. Reuben?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Who's Reuben?
No, Reuben is corned beef. Sauerkraut.
Whatever it is. So if it's
It's called
hamotzi,
a Dagwood sandwich.
Dagwood, that's what it said, Dagwood.
Dagwood. So if it's hamotzi covers everything. But if it's mazonos bread, if you hold a mazonos bread, let's just say, I think you have to make separate brachas on the inside because it's not a real ikar and tafel. You want both, and they're not cooked together, they're not mixed together, and there's no clear ikar and tafel.
So there's no clear ikar and tafel. What bracha do you make? I mean, if I'm eating an ice cream sandwich, I'm eating an ice cream sandwich because I want to have the mazonos as well as the ice cream.
If they're not mixed together and they're not cooked together, and there's no clear ikar and tafel, you simply make two brachas. That's all.
That's it. Okay.
Okay. We continue and we say.
Can I ask? Sorry,
Yeah.
just about like schnitzel because when you have like chicken nuggets are like it's like the inside like the chicken is like kind of like this minced pureed chicken, which I'm sure they put like a binder inside, like flour, and then like the flour, the breading is like very thick typically, and I always in my mind it seemed like most appropriate to say mazonos on a chicken nugget.
Right. I would recommend you introduce shahakal into the picture.
Uh-huh.
Whether you say it on a piece of the chicken first or you take a little bit of another shahakal food on the side. That's my recommendation.
Got it. But with the schnitzel, like I think what you told Benji, that's okay to like kind of peel off a piece of the breading, make a mazonos on that, and then eat the inside of the chicken with the shahakal.
Eat the inside first. Eat the inside first.
You
That's
eat the inside. You eat the inside first.
Yes, change the order of the brachas and eat the inside first. Unless you have a shahakal on the side, like if you have some seltzer, then you can say a mazonos first and then shahakal, no problem.
Why do you eat the? Why?
If you don't, and you want to say them both on the schnitzel, Avdaj says to break it open, say shahakal first and then mazonos.
Why?
Because he's concerned that if you made mazonos first, then you may have already covered the shahakal, and you can no longer say it because it may be a bracha levatal. Whereas if you say the shahakal first, it's for sure not levatal. You're changing the order, but you're changing it to be able to go out of a doubt of brachas.
Okay.
Chaim.
I feel like all this could be taken care of if we weren't such big Bali Taiba. Like 8 more simple foods.
What can I say? We live in a very blessed world.
So there's so many options, so many mixtures.
Baruch Hashem. Shem Shamayim, exactly. Remember that tzaddikim, they eat to be able to make brachas. So for them, an extra bracha, machai.
Against fasting. Fast because he said the cough you could use it tefillah. So
Nice.
there was a wrestler that later on that really wanted to fast. He felt that it very much helped him spiritually to get away from Hazak said it, so he had a dream that he never opened up to him. And he asked him, I know you said it's not best too, but can I fast? He says, don't fast, but I never mentioned how much you have to eat.
Nice, nice. Okay. Okay, we continue with A. Any mixture of sweet ingredients that are made for pleasure, together with grain, with flour of grain, small amount, with sugar, and a lot of almond flour. So, even though it's thick and it's baked in a oven like regular bread, you make mazonis and main shalish. Unless you're eating enough to make the kriyasud. It sounds a little bit like marzipan. So marzipan has no flour. I looked it up today. But maybe they had a different recipe. Right. So nowadays it has no flour and it's no problem. But maybe he had a different recipe. I don't know. It sounds like it. Sugar. Maybe. Right. No, but it has to be that you want the flavor of it too. In order for it to be mazonos, you have to want the flavor. If it's just to build it up, like poise, you said before, to give it thickness, it's not going to be mazonos. So it's something like that. Vav. Listen carefully, my friends, because nowadays we have a proliferation of all kinds of different flours on the market. You can get quinoa flour and rice and corn flour, goes without saying, almond flour, soybean flour, lentil flour, you name it, it's all available. So if you made a bread with a mixture of grain flour with kidneyas flour, right? Soybeans, lentils, any of these things, chickpeas. Other flours, if you would bake them without any grain flour, would be shahakal. Now you're introducing some grain flour into this bread. So the purpose of the grain flour is obviously to satisfy you. Even though it is a minority ingredient, it becomes the ikar. And because you're eating these breads to satisfy you, these are not snack breads. These are filling breads. So you say hamoitzi on them. Afilu im hakemach hadagan umur pachos megzayim chdechelis pras. Shebrach Hashem ein lo shir. Afilu koshu. It's a huge chiddush, my friends. Even if it's less than 1/6 grain flour, so you're not going to have a kazayis and a kdechelis pras. Nevertheless, there is going to be grain flour in every bite you take, and it's there for the flavor, and it's there for the satisfaction, so it becomes the main thing. You say hamoitzi. You're not going to be able to bench on it, but you say hamoitzi on it. One of the 5 grains. You made a mixture of flour, a bread with all these other grains, and one of the grains is spelt oats, wheat, whatever. So that is going to be hamoitzi, regardless of how much of the ratio it is. Now, to be able to bench, you're going to have a kazayis with techilas pras, right? You're going to have to have a kazayis. You're going to have to have 1/6 of it be grain flour. But to be able to make hamoitzi, regardless of the ratio, you make hamoitzi.
Do you bench if you have a satisfying amount of that?
No, you don't bench. You can only bench if it's 1/6. 1/6 grain flour, and even then, we're going to see in the 8th chapter that some say you have to actually eat 6 kazesim. Yeah, have to have 6 kazesim to be able to bench. And you have to eat them in a kedei achilas pras. Yeah, you eat them consecutive.
Didn't we say that when you have like a piece of mezainis,
You have to eat the pras and the kedei achilas pras. I'm saying if it's exactly 1/6 of grain flour. I'm sorry?
Didn't we say that when you have like a piece of mezainis and then the rest of it is like regular meal food like potatoes and fish, then you do say you do bench?
If you eat mezainis and the amount of 4 eggs, and you're satisfied from that plus the secondary foods, then you bench. Levanta?
Yes.
And if not,
One more time?
If you ate this,
In order
I
to
just have a question.
bench,
If you ate this bean bread, if you ate this bean bread and you didn't have
and
like,
you're satisfied from it, but you didn't have a kazayas, if the achilas pras, you're not going to be able to say ala michya or bench for that matter.
what about brain nefashos?
Yes, you'll say burn nefashos. That's correct. In the case of the eating mezainis with other foods, you did have a kazayas of mezainis, or even more than that, and it's supplemented with other foods to add to your satisfaction. But here you didn't even have a kazayas of grain, so how could you thank Hashem for the satisfaction, for the satiation, when you're really not satiated from it?
So for Hamaitzi, in order to say Hamaitzi and Birchos HaMazon, you have to have a kazayas of bread, or is it?
Absolutely.
I heard it's like 2 different shiurim. Like one is a shiur for saying Hamaitzi, and one is a shiur for benching. Like you have to
There's no shiur for hamaitzi. You say even a hamaitzi and a crumb, and for benching you have to eat a kazayas.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Why is bread motzi and pizza? That's not they go like some.
What's the pizza's mezainis? Pizza with regular.
One pizza.
One piece of pizza with regular dough, like flour and water dough, is hamaitzi according to the Alter Rebbe and the Mishnah Berurah. Moshe says you could say mezainis based on the Taz, but most poskim say it's hamaitzi.
What's our Moshe's time?
Moshe says you could rely on the Taz. The Taz says that you could, that the milui does not have to be mina mesika. It could be also dvarim hamasmiyim. Any milui is enough to make it kisnan according to the Taz. Basar, dagim, gvina.
It doesn't have to be a milui what?
It doesn't have to be a milui that is for idun and tainug. It could be a milui that is lemazon and lesoiva.
So cheese.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't cheese be like that?
Cheese is a filling food. Cheese, vegetables, meat. Those are all they're all meal foods.
No.
All meal foods. Generally, the foods that you don't make a bracha on during a meal are considered, satisfying foods, even if they're not, satisfying on their own, but they're malafas that go together, as opposed to sweet things that are more snack foods, like nuts, like fruits, like chocolate, and all that. Okay. It goes without saying, says the Alter Rebbe Vav, that if you eat bread and it was baked separately as bread, no matter how much of a milu you give to it, You can take a pita bread and you can fill it with who knows what. All the pita, all the falafel and the salads and the hot peppers in the world. Doesn't make a difference. The bread is still the ikar. Make a bracha of hamaitzi, and you cover everything else that's in it. That goes without saying.
Calzone according to Russia,
That is.
even if it's bread, as long as the mealy is, even if the mealy is the seva, it would be zaynis. And what's the three then?
Because possible bekisten if you eat if you eat a shir shachem koivim alav.
However much possible bekisten.
No, his psak is that three. No, his psak that's the shir shachem koivim alav.
What?
Shachem koivim alav.
The whole world eats three.
In America.
Anyway, I mean, I don't need to say that. But, most people have to, meaning most people when they want to eat pizza get full.
So Moshe, I'm just repeating Moshe psak the way I heard it. One is Mazinus. Sorry? It's not Negus Moshe. I never saw Negus Moshe. One is Mazinus. 3 is Hamoitzi. 2, it depends if you're full. So 2, he's like mistapik. If you're full, then because
that's hard to make. Sure.
It is, yeah, that's true. So if you know you're going to be full, then you make hamoitzi. If you're not sure, yeah, I guess. I mean, if you're not sure, it's probably better to just say hamoitzi and something else, or to just not eat too, because you're going to put yourself in a position. But
other than talks about this whole. Anyone goes one of the times?
I don't know. I didn't come across it.
I saw a poster. Let's see. I gave all those sheets as a pizza.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. V'isa. Okay. V'isa sheyesh b'mili basa v'dagam agvina u'peres v'yetza b'hem. Dough that has a milui of, this is not what we're talking about, of meat and fish, I shouldn't say and, or cheese, or fruit, or anything else. Nasa milui tfeila le'isa. V'nifta b'berachas ha'isa. The milui becomes secondary to the dough, and it's covered by the bracha on the dough. So you have a meat pie, you have an empanada, you have a pizza, and it's a hamoitzi dough, and you make hamoitzi. All of those pockets are covered. Whether the bracha is hamoitzi or mazonos, even if you have an outer dough, which is mazonos, because you made it with apple juice, but the filling is still covered by that bracha. You know what I'm saying? You made pizza with mazonos dough. You made it with apple juice to be able to keep your happy customers. So that cheese is secondary to the mazonos. That's what I said before. That's what I was saying before. It's baked together, out there, bowls baked to cook together, even if you eat the filling stuff, the tafel stuff afterwards alone. I feel them in the Rav Mo'id, even if the milu is a very large amount. And his main kavanah when eating this dough is for the milu. He likes the cheese more than the dough. After all, he also does want the isa. He's not sitting down to a meal of cheese. He's sitting down to a meal of pizza, or even a snack of a bareka. Why is he having a bareka? Because a bareka is a bareka. It's a filling food. So he does want the flour also. So therefore, the flour becomes the ikar and the rest is tafel. Don't try to be too frum and take some of the cheese out and say, I'm going to make a separate bracha. I'm not going to just cover it with the bracha on the mazonos. No. I'm going to take some cheese out and I'm going to say shahakol. Says the Alter Rebbe, that is a bracha levatala. because you made a bracha on the Ikar, you cannot make a bracha on the Tafel. Now, it seems to me that the Alter Rebbe is talking about after you make a bracha on the Ikar. After you make a bracha on the Ikar, you cannot take it out and make a bracha on the Tafel because it's a bracha l'vatala. Now, if you take it out beforehand, it's not a bracha l'vatala because it's not in vain, but it's still an unnecessary bracha, and it's still a change of the order of the brachas. So it's still not proper. But to have a bracha that's actually vatala, it would seem is only if you take the cheese out after you say the mazonos already, and then say shahak.
But can I ask you the whole you said that the OU doesn't accept the whole mazonos spread, so they like reject Rabbi Feinstein's psak?
That's an interesting question. Do they reject a Moshe Feinstein's psak? I'm going to venture to say that they don't.
Right.
Their concept is that if you're baking it to look like bread, then you intend for it to be eaten like bread, and therefore it's missing the main component of what makes something mazonos. The main component of what makes something mazonos is that it's a snack food. When you make something to serve the function of bread, even if you make it in a way that technically should make it into mazonos, because you put in just 51% of other liquids, but it's missing the main function. Why is a cake mazonos? Because it's a snack food. If it wouldn't be a snack food, it wouldn't be mazonos. You understand?
So the OU would agree that pizza is mazonos according to their Moshe's psak?
No. Mazonos, pizza is not bread. Pizza is pizza.
I mean, it's a bread. It's like a flat bread. It's a bread. It's bread with stuff on top.
It's not bread. It's pizza. What do you mean?
I mean, okay.
You could make pizza with bread.
If you take a piece of bread and you make grilled cheese, that's unlikely. But when you make pizza, that's not bread. That's a separate dish. It's called pizza.
How is that different? Like if I take a laffa dough and put sauce and cheese on it, that's a pizza, but the laffa is bread. And
the dough before it's baked is not bread. When you bake it, if you bake it as a pizza, then it's pizza. It's neither bread nor cake. It's its own thing. Now, the Taz holds that since people don't eat such foods the same way they eat regular bread, you don't eat pizza the same way you eat regular bread. I mean, the truth is, it is usually eaten in a meal, but it's still not eaten like bread. I'm saying bread is like, it's part of the meal in terms of you eat it together with other foods. It's like I'm saying it becomes the main thing of the meal. Pizza is like a separate dish, which is eaten usually as the main thing in the meal, but it's still not eaten the same way as regular bread is eaten. So it's a chiddush of the Taz that it's not considered regular bread. But you understand that it is not regular bread. Whereas mazonos bread, according to those opinions, that when something is made with the intention of eating in a regular way, it's hamoitzi. And if you think about it, it's hard to defend the position of those that say mazonos on mazonos bread, considering that those same people, presumably if they're Ashkenazim, say hamoitzi on matzah. Why do they say hamoitzi on matzah? Even though matzah is pretty much the same exact thing as a cracker, just a bit bigger. No, they say hamoitzi. Why? Because when it's baked, even though it's baked crisp, but people intend to use it as bread. Okay, so therefore the same thing applies to mazonos bread. I'm saying, but as a result of that, they consider it bread, and therefore even during the week, even during the year, they consider it bread. They eat it as a bread.
If it wasn't for pizza, they wouldn't consider it.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't. But once they do, it becomes a change in their outlook on the bread. Oh, cool. All right. Okay. Oh, Interesting. So, yeah. All right. So that's my point. The reason that matzah is mazoina is hamotzi is because even though it's technically a cracker, but the fact is people consider it a bread, so it becomes a bread. So people consider mazona's bread a bread in terms of the way they eat it. I know halachically they don't want it to be bread because they want to make mazonas and not have to wash and bench and that whole thing. But the way they treat it is like bread. They eat it like identically.
So again, the OU would be like, according to their whole thing with Mazonis bread, they would be okay with making Mazonis on pizza.
I mean, I don't know their opinion on pizza, but it's not a contradiction.
Right. Okay.
It's not a contradiction. Okay. If you're one of those people who picks the cheese off the pizza and does not actually eat the pizza, then you have to say the correct bracha on the cheese. Shakal v'perdama b'beretz, whether it's shakal, adama, or eitz. Okay, my friends, now that I'm finished that section, I want to go back to the notes that I sent out today and discuss some of them which are relevant at this point. Okay, so number one, I already mentioned that according to many Rishonim, the grain has to be a significant taste, and that explains the whole schnitzel discussion. Licorice, I explained. Here's an interesting discussion that the V'zos bracha has. If you eat an Ikar and a Tafel, the bracha on the Ikar covers both the bracha Rishayna and the bracha Acharayna. Yes? Let's say you don't eat a shear of the Ikar. You only eat a shear of the Tafel, not of the Ikar. What bracha Acharayna do you make on the Tafel?
The bracha achrona on the Ikar.
But you didn't have a kazayis of the Ikar.
But it's mitzaref, no? It's mitzaref. It's considered the Ikar.
It's like the same thing we talked about before. I think you say with the bean bread, you would say brei nefashos.
So some say that it's mitzaref. I heard somebody say mitzaref. I think Benji said. Some say it's mitzaref, basically. But when there's a tziruf of two things, you always get downgraded to the lower bracha, right? If you have a half a shear of alamich and half a shear of bar nefashos, you get downgraded to bar nefashos. So they would say bar nefashos.
You would make it after bracha? Are there those who say you wouldn't make it after bracha?
I don't know.
I just never saw that you.
Yeah, because I think the case when you would have to wash and all that, it's like you're actually eating some real mezanos and then having the other food with it.
One more time, Daniel. Sorry, one more time. I'm sorry.
I think the other problem is if you to bench or not on al hamicha or birchot hamazon is where you're eating mezonos, but then you're eating other significant foods with it, on the side, tabshlin or something like that. But here it's not the case. Here it's just mixed together like the bean bread. So that's what I'm thinking.
One second, give me a moment, please. I'm trying to remember where I saw it. Okay. Too much information. So I just remember two of the shitas, there was a third. But basically one said it's mitzaref, and one said you say the bracha of the tafel. because you had a bracha, you had a shear of the tafel, and that you didn't have a shear of the ikar. So therefore, you cannot say bracha achrein on the ikar. You're left with the bracha achrein on the tafel. That's all.
This was on the original question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you had a half a kazayis of the ikar and a full kazayis of the tafel. I think it's what Moshe. Moshe says normally the bracha achrein on the ikar covers the tafel. Here there is simply no bracha achrein on the ikar. The tafel can't be left without a bracha achrein. You had a kazayis of it. So you have no choice but to make the bracha achreina of the tafel, even though it was covered with the bracha rishona. But right now it's left without a bracha achreina, so you have no choice but to make a bracha achreina separately. That was a much Flora. Some said that it's mitzdaref. So whatever.
Which way do we go by?
Well, if the ikar is mezainas and the tafel is bar nefashas, either way, you're begging bar nefashas. If the ikar is the bar nefashas and the tafel is the mezainas, which is an exception, then you would have a machlokes here, right? Because according to Rav Moshe, you make a ala mechya, and according to the first opinion, it's mitzdaref. You would still say ala mechya.
Wait, why if the ikar?
I'm just realizing. Either way, you're going to make an ala mechya. Either way, it's going to come out the same bracha either way. It's just a question in svara. It's a question in logic. If you're making a bracha because it's mitzdaref, either way you're going to make the bracha on the tafel. But is it that the ikar is mitzdaref to the tafel, or is that there is no bracha achrein on the ikar, and you're left with the bracha achrein on the tafel? But practically it's the same thing.
I didn't understand that. If we have one cracker, which is not a kazayas, and then a ton of tuna, so we wouldn't say ala michya?
No. You would say bar nefashas. Is it the pshat that the cracker is mitzdaref to that bar nefashas, or is it the pshat that you have to make a bracha achrein on the tuna because you're left without a bracha achrein? But either way, you're going to make a bar nefashas. Okay. Should we talk about krembo? Does anybody eat krembo? Does anybody even know what krembo is?
Yeah, my wife is Israeli. It's a famous thing.
But there's mazonis in the bottom. It's a cookie.
Oh, okay. So you know what it is.
Is that creme brulee?
So it's a cookie on the bottom, it's cream on the top, and it's chocolate all around. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah, it is great. I don't think I've ever eaten one in my life, but I know in Israel it's a big thing for the kids.
Yeah,
anyway,
I love chocolate.
The Akud Yosef holds that the whole purpose of the cookie is to be able to hold the cream. And therefore he says that shahakal covers everything. Unless you eat the cream and are left with the cookie separately, then you make a mazonis on the cookie. He holds the same thing applies to a cone. That a cone, the main thing in a cone is to hold the ice cream. So you say only shahakal, unless you eat the ice cream first and you're left with the cone, and then you eat it separately, then you make a mazonis. But I will say that so this is somewhat...
The actual... I'm sorry, cover that off. The ikar is the actual marshmallow, the filling that's on top?
He's saying that that's the ikar. And that's if you don't know. If you happen to know that if you happen to know that in your mind you like the cone, you like the cookie, then you should make a bracha. If your purpose in eating it is not just to hold it, you should say a bracha. But if you're not sure, this is what he says is the presumption. Presumption is to hold it.
That's
yes.
You might want.
So we follow the Yalkut Yosef when it comes to that. I mean,
a lot of brachas are subjective. A lot of brachas are subjective.
You can actually find cheesecake ice cream. So you have the cone, you have the cheesecake ice cream.
First of all, cheesecake, no baked cheesecake is 2 brachas. No baked cheesecake is 2 brachas because it's 2 separate items sitting one on top of the other. I assume that this is not cooked together. It's just kind of manufactured together. Oh, so the cone and the ice cream. the cone and the ice cream, he's holding that the reason you have the cone is just so the ice cream shouldn't fall on the ground. Maybe, maybe not. The cake is usually adding to the flavor. It's a good flavor. It's not just that.
There's also a pen.
Sorry?
Pen is there to hold everything. You don't need the crust to hold it.
You can't bite into the pan. Here, you hold it with the thing and you bite into it.
You slice it out. You don't need that. Just like the crust is going to be there, you don't have to have the crust there. Otherwise, you just flip out of your plate without anything holding it. You don't need it anyways with the pan.
You don't?
Cheesecake with the pan?
No?
No, but you don't have to leave it on the.
So with this ice
You
cream
can
cone,
cheesecake with your hand if it's available to the people. That's not the.
Yeah, in any case, we're arguing about a point that's not worth arguing.
No.
The point is, most people do intend to eat the cake of the cheese also for its flavor. I think that's part of it.
I'm sure many people also enjoy the cracker or cookie on the bottom of the crema.
If they do, and that's something that's important to them, it seems clear that you have to make it.
So, Kavod Rav, I have a question.
I'm not saying you should make it on his own.
Why is Lanacha it's just a You can't make a crembo without that cookie?
You can, but it's easier to hold with a firm thing on the bottom. It's easier to have just a fluff thing, isn't it?
Harder chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate melts.
so the thing is with an ice cream cone, would you once you get to the cone and start eating it, then you would say Mizonos.
Right. If you're done the ice cream, yeah. If you're done the ice cream.
But what if you're not done with the ice cream? There's still some ice cream and the cone. Can't you just shouldn't you stop and once you bite it before you bite into the cone say Mizonos?
So I did see other brachas books that say that it depends if it's a sweet cone or a non-sweet cone. If it's a sweet cone, presumably you want the flavor of the cone also, so you would make an mizonos on it. But if it's a non-sweet cone, then it's probably just there to help you hold it. So that is perhaps another thing to keep into account.
Because the taste is just kind of raw when you eat it. It's just, it's nothing great.
Right.
Uh-huh.
What was ice cream cone?
No, I saw that if it's a sweet cone, then presumably you want the cone also. What were you saying, Emmanuel?
When you go to the ice cream store, sweet cone and water cone, and they have a cup.
Exactly.
So if you want ice cream without the cone, get it
Right,
on
no one's
the
forcing you on cones.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm saying. So if you get in the cone, or whatever, you get in the cone. So
Right. You presumably like the taste.
Yeah, so
Right. I hear it.
If the cone is just holding the ice cream and it's left over, why is it any different than the milk left over from the cereal?
We had a good point.
What's that?
That's it. It was a good. We thought it was a good point, but we didn't hear it.
Oh, I said the cone is more convenient. And cup, you have to hold in one hand, you have to store it with the other. You don't usually.
Yeah, there can even be
usually a cone.
There can
With a
even
cone,
be a
you
way
just-
that it's-
you walk.
You don't actually want the cones to see.
I hear it.
It's a utensil.
with the cone, you have the risk of more risk of getting dirt. So if you're going through
There's
that
pros and cons to everything.
Depends on your age. For some ages, it's not a problem. It's part of the
So
experience.
if you're served cheesecake, if you don't make it, how do you know if it was baked or not baked? You're served it at a kiddush, a bas mitzvah, whatever. How do you? I never saw anyone call over the mashgiach and ask if it was baked. If he even knew,
Cheesecake until
if he even knew it was delivered from the bakery.
Is that a common thing, non-baked cheesecake?
The way you can tell is if it's no bake,
Oh, the top isn't
exactly, the
Ah,
top
yeah,
is
yeah,
going to
it's-
be
it's-
white.
it'd be white.
If the
not
top is brown,
brownish. Yeah,
then it
yeah,
was
you're right,
baked.
Yeah, but just a minute.
Is this
I'm an
common-
expert.
common type of
Yeah, but
cheesecake?
you can put a crumb thing on top or
Yeah,
whatever.
also, a lot of times.
Coconut.
Makes them.
Okay.
And then when my wife makes it, she puts like cream cheese on top. So it's a white, different.
On non-baked, they also use the graham crackers also.
Yeah, the graham crackers.
On top?
The top and on the bottom too. They put instead of they don't cook it, but they put the graham crackers. They crush it and they put the graham
Yeah, I know,
crackers there on the
but on
bottom.
the top, it's not, it's white, it's not brown.
Ah, that's what you mean.
You might have tasted it, you just never knew about it.
Yeah, I've never seen or heard.
They're delicious. I'll tell you that.
Better than a baked cheesecake?
Huh?
Yeah.
Better than baked?
It's
I think
softer.
they-
It's
I
softer
think they-
because it didn't become. It
Well,
didn't
you
get
can
that.
make it hard if you put it in the freezer.
That's true.
All right, my friends.
Cheesecake 101.
Okay, that pretty much covers it. We are going to continue. This is where we were supposed to get up to last night, by the way. Now we start tonight's year, Sif Ches.
Oh, so now
Now we're on track.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the 7 lachas?
From yesterday. V'lo yizu muvad amar elok ches. Perek Gimel, halacha ches. Yeah. V'lo yizu muvad amar elok kol davar sh'ikar v'yimay tefilin v'varach leikar preitos atfeila. Afilu einin ma'achalim u'ravim zem ze klal. Ele shoyach l'shneim yachad. Ikar achilu min echad. V'asheni en abel v'achmas harishon. Shem lo yochel harishon lo yochel hasheni atar hasheni nit tabrichas harishon. V'afilu lechem shu choshev mikol ha'minim. Listen carefully, my friends. Now the Alter Rebbe starts to talk about something else. Until now, we were talking about things that are mixed together. Now he's talking about two separate foods. But nevertheless, you're eating one because of the other. So the first example is you're eating them at the same time. And your main achila is the one min, and the second one is coming because of the second, because of the first one. He's going to give an example in a minute. That the only reason you're eating it is because of the first one. So the second one is covered by the bracha on the first one. Even if it's bread. Kegoyim, for example. Misha chafetz lechel dag maluach. You want to eat salty fish. You want to have herring, schmaltz herring, or whatever it's called. But it's too salty. So you put it on a little slice of bread so that to help it go down without hurting yourself from too much salt. It's covered by the bracha on the fish. Hamoitzi, the most important of all brachas, the one that comes before all other brachas. Exactly. Nevertheless, you're eating it only because of something else, not because you're hungry. He's going to say that later. Only because you want to temper the saltiness. It's covered. Exactly.
What's covered? The bracha on chametzi with the dog, with the fish?
The bracha shahako covers the bread.
So my question is, the picture that Emmanuel brought from the wedding, in that situation, what bracha do you make on it?
I'm trying to remember which picture he brought from the wedding.
With the
Bagel thing. The right bread with the salmon on top.
Yeah, no, there the salmon was part of the taste. Yeah, that was part of the taste. Ask the caterer. But definitely the bagel was part of the taste. It wasn't just to, to flavor. Even if it's to flavor the salmon, you have to remember. You still make hamoitzi because it's for flavor. Here it's not for flavor at all.
Here's to help out the food go, make it easier for the person.
Exactly.
The thing is that fish is not, you're not able to eat that fish by itself. It goes hand in hand. You need the bread to be able to eat the fish.
Yeah,
so
that was my next thing, yeah.
When you have in mind, when you're like, oh, I want some of this salty fish, it automatically comes that I want the bread with it because it goes hand in hand. You can't just have the salty fish without the.
Yeah, why
not
bread
to be able to eat the fish.
No, it's not for flavor.
I don't know.
It's changing the flavor.
Yeah, but that's not why you're eating it.
That's
You-
exactly why you. The fish is too strong.
Yeah, but you want the bread to be able to calm down you want the flavor of the fish, but it's too salty. So
But the bread adds to the flavor.
Yeah, but you don't want the flavor of the bread. You just want it to take away from the saltiness of the fish. Okay, but you're doing it for the fish, you're not doing it for the bread. You don't want to eat the bread at all. You have no desire for the bread, not for its flavor and not for its satisfaction, nothing.
But you don't want the fish
Yeah,
by
to
itself.
be able to eat the fish, that's all.
But you don't want the fish by itself.
You want the bread, you want the fish, but to be able to eat the fish, you're eating the bread.
But so you don't want the fish. You want the fish with the bread. Because you can't eat the fish by itself.
The fish is together with the bread. You have no desire to eat bread. You would not eat bread on its own, even if you could. That's not your interest at all.
So
You want to eat the fish, but this fish cannot be eaten on its own. It needs something to accompany it.
So my question is, Rebbe, so if this was only in a scenario where there is nothing else that you can use to negate the saltiness of the fish, meaning if there's nothing else that I could actually negate it and say, I don't have a cracker or I don't have a vegetable that go with the fish.
Nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it.
So if I have any other thing that could negate the saltiness of the fish, and I just choose dafka, I want to eat the bread with the fish because
if you want to eat the bread because you want the bread, yes. But if you're eating the bread for the purpose of this, of being able to eat the fish, you're covered. Not because there's nothing else. Whatever you take, you'll say, well, what do you mean there's nothing else? You'll take the cracker. There's nothing else. There's always something else. Whatever you're taking, it's to help you eat the fish.
Exactly. So why would one take the bread and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna avoid saying chametzi and then just eat it with the fish because that's I choose dafka the bread to negate the saltiness of the fish. Well, if I could actually take something else.
Why is something else better? What's the difference?
Oh, if it's going for something better, because why do you want to take chametzi then? Why do you? I mean, if you're choosing chametzi because there's no other option.
Why are you making it sound like there's something wrong with taking chametzi? Is there something wrong? Are you ruining the chametzi? You're ruining the chametzi opportunity. There's no halacha that you're not allowed to ruin the chametzi opportunity.
No, he's just showing that by taking the hametzi over crackers.
I am not, because the Alter Rebbe is going to not recommend it, because he's going to say that it's hard to know that you're not hungry. As soon as you're hungry, and you have in the back of your mind that you're also being satisfied, that becomes a question. The Alter Rebbe doesn't recommend it, but this is the Ikar halacha, but it's not recommended. Sorry?
I don't see anybody.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
I haven't seen anybody doing it. The Alter Rebbe is going to recommend not to do it, which is why you haven't seen it. But it is the halacha.
This is what they used to eat. This was a very common way of eating it. But my question is...
I mean, people still eat herring with crackers. I don't know with bread necessarily, but they eat it with crackers.
My question is, in order not to make a motzi, you have to eat the herring, salty herring, with the bread at the same time? Or can you take herring and the bread's a chaser?
He's going to discuss that in a minute, actually. Discuss it right now. This is only when he is not hungry and desiring for the bread at all, and he would not eat it if not for the salty food. So, of course, it's contributing for the flavor, but it's a separate item, and he's only eating it because of the fish. I want to point this out. When it's two ingredients in one food, so if it contributes to the flavor, it becomes the main thing, right? But here it's not two ingredients. It's a separate food, and you're only eating it because of the first food. So you're right, it contributes to the flavor, but that's not why I'm eating it. I'm not eating it for the contribution. It contributes, fine. But my purpose in eating it is simply to accompany this food. So therefore it's secondary. And it's covered by the bracha.
Like by a shul kiddush, you plan on going to eat at home your main meal, but you want to have something in shul. You could do that lechatchila.
Do what lechatchila?
Take a piece of herring with some bread and say l'chaim.
Well, we're going to say later, the Alter Rebbe is going to recommend that you eat the bread first in case you're hungry, because you could be, if you're hungry, then there's a question on this bracha. So he's going to recommend to always say bracha on the bread first, but Meikar Hadin, yes, you can do this.
because you know you're for sure snacking now and you're going to eat the meal later.
So what? If you're hungry, you're still staving off your hunger.
But I know that I'm not gonna have a meal. Like I'm just gonna have. Why does it matter if I'm hungry? I'm gonna have.
Because if you're hungry, then you're presumably also enjoying the satisfying aspect of the bread. The fact that you can have a meal later doesn't take away from the fact that you're hungry now. If you would have told me the opposite, I already ate, and now I'm having it, that's more of a reason to not make a bracha. Because I'm not even hungry. I'm just eating its stam for the flavor of the fish. You know what I'm saying? Then that's more of a chiddush.
Got it.
That's an interesting question, though. I was thinking, if you eat it by kiddush in this way, can it cover you for kiddush b'makom suda? I'm gonna have a kazayas of bread, but I'm not gonna make a bracha on it because I'm having it together with fish. Is that good enough for my suda?
What would the Rav assume? Or?
I assume not, because the whole point of a suda is that it's satisfying. And if you're eating this in a way that's not satisfying, it's not a suda.
I mean, the whole thing is it's a suda.
Exactly.
And here you're specifically eating it.
Exactly. So how could it be a suda?
In order to be able to eat something else.
Right. So it seems. So it would seem.
Another good example, just thinking, is garlic. It's probably hard to eat raw, but if someone wants to eat a piece of garlic, get it in the system, to have it with, roll up a piece of bread and put it in your mouth, it would take away a lot of the sharpness.
Right. I hear you.
Maybe onion would be another good example.
Yeah, but why do people eat onions?
I'm saying you need to get it in your body.
Why?
You're saying all this onions would then.
No, I'm just saying garlic is a medicinal food. But if you don't like the taste of onions, why are you eating it?
Oh, okay, I was thinking also from this one.
I don't know if there's medicinal things in onions. I don't know.
Roll a piece of basically making a salad.
I'm saying put it in, get it with bread. And then put it in your mouth, so
Swallow it without chewing? Mamish not chewing?
No, it's not much chewing.
Uh-huh.
That's the only. I mean, to chew a piece of raw garlic is difficult.
Uh-huh.
So it definitely, like on Shabbat, if I ever do that, it works a lot easier with bread than that.
Right. I hear you. I hear you. 2 not 4 not 6 not 7 8 not 9.
I have
Okay, good. Because I have Elchanan and Machal and his father, so we should be good with you. If you're hearing just one more, we should be good. But if you're eating it, but if you're hungry for the bread, even though you're eating it together with salty food, it's not secondary. Even if you want the fish more, you still have to make a bracha on hamoitzi. Because the hamoitzi is the main thing, and these things come because of the hamoitzi. They always cover it, even though they don't come because of it. Okay, we're going to break here from Ma'ariv and continue with Hashem next week. Thank you all for joining.
Rabbi.
Thank you. Say l'chaim for Ayala Golf. Yes.
Did you ever look into what the bracha is for overnight oats? Like oats that don't get cooked but they become soft, and it turns into a porridge.
I think I came across something in my notes that Rav Moshe, that Rav Shlomo Zalman says they're mazonos. That even if you soak them till they're mushy and they stick together, I'm pretty sure Rav Shlomo Zalman says they're mazonos.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a good night, Rabbi.
Best.
What's tonight?